I would say so, but it depends on how you look at e-wallets, right? That's a very contrary view that I have. That is like, businesses don't care whether it's a e-wallet or not, right? What you do with the e-wallet matters. In our case, or in most of the, what we have done is we used e-wallet to issue a corporate and Visa card on top. It's a Visa or MasterCard that we issued using the e-wallets, right? E-wallets at the end of the day, it's where it's a good way for fintechs like us to not have a banking license but still do all the good stuff that the bank is ought to do, right? That's what it enables if you really look at it, right? It's more of that, right? So in from that perspective, yes, it's a future for businesses, but businesses don't give a damn whether it's an e-wallet or not, right? At the end of the day, it's like, they just want their problems to be solved. And e-wallets, I think, for fintechs like us, since like digital banking licenses yet to be come out and everything, I think this is like a very good way for fintechs to go get the e-wallet stuff and use cards and all this stuff and do solve these problems of payables and receivables for company. It's just like a very nice gateway is what I would say. Yeah.
How does budgeting play? I mean, does it play a huge role in the company operations? Is it a very important thing, especially in times like this?
Yeah, so budgeting is like probably it's like all the people tell this a lot, right? That is like, if you don't plan, what do you have, right? At the end of the day, right? You have to plan. I think we all, I think, as founders and is we get so involved in our day-to-day operations that we forget what are we doing, right? So I think it's very important, and if you really look at it, I think roughly all the companies get it right. The budgeting part, right? Everybody plans. There's a quarterly plan. Any decent company worth its money would do this. But the problem is, everybody, I mean, I'm pretty sure you also know this, right? That is, we all do this on an Excel sheet. Now, how do you enforce this? That is where I see as the problem, right? That is like, there is no single tool out there which can actually enforce your budgets that you have on your Excel sheet. It's virtually impossible, because you have your bank cards, you have your wire payments and everything, you have all your team just going out there and making expenses. How do you enforce this, right? That is where I see as a problem and an opportunity for people like us, right? Like one thing, if I can take an example, right? Like Revolut, I don't know if you have used Revolut, right? It enables you to budget your groceries and all your stuff, right, at the beginning of the month, right? Even they find it very hard to enforce it. Like it's just like you have to still tag every expense and try to put it somewhere here and everything. But the point what I was trying to make is that's exactly what we have tried to do with our solution. That's where sorry, it's a shameless plug, but I had to tell this. That is like budgeting is a very important part, and we have tried to enforce it. Like one of the things approaches that we've taken is you set this budgets, right? Like that's exactly how companies work. That is based on cost centers or based on teams or based on projects. You have this budgeting. So you set the budgets for every team, and then you actually give the ownership to a team member. Like, okay, this $10,000, take this. Now you go take these cards, make this expenses or whatever it is, right? You take this, you're the sales head. This is the money that you will get, and that's how you put it in Excel sheet. But if you weirdly see it, right, every company you give this money, but then again, for every approval, they have to come back to the finance guys. Why do you have to do it, right? You trust the employees to do it, just go ahead and do it. So that's something that we are enabling with our software, that is plan and enforce that budget, like very much within your payment flow. I think that's super important. That's how I would put it. Yeah. Okay, it's a good question, right? It's like, I think, sorry, again, bear with me. It's a slightly long answer. That is like, especially in Southeast Asia, what I see is, we have like the economies are very interconnected, right? There's a lot of travel and trade between the countries, and this is not the case in any other parts of the world. It's a very obvious thing, right? Like we travel a lot between the countries, we do a lot of B2B payments within these countries. And I don't know, like Indonesia is just a few miles away, but it's more expensive to send money there than to US from here, right? It's extremely expensive also. Like all these corridors payments are expensive. And whenever you and also, right, for tech companies, there's other problem. You pay your AWS, you pay all your software in USD. So there's a lot of loss in FX. That is, every time you make a card payment in foreign currencies, you're incurring 3 to 4% loss. That's one. So, and the second is, whenever you make the B2B payments, it's very expensive. Like your banks charge like a flat fee and everything. For how I look at this is, right, there's like, there are smart ways of doing this. If you're smart, I mean, some companies, just go to, TransferWise or something, they load the money and they make the expenses. Even TransferWise loses its efficiency at very high currencies. I mean, at very high volumes. That's very important. So it's very hard. If you ask me, like, how to do FX and, corporate tracking really easily, there's no real answer there. Like at some, it all depends on what you do, right? Like if you have huge volumes, you can go to, Amex, or you can go to your bank and you can actually get a very nice deal for yourself. You can actually do it, but not really every company can afford to do it because you don't have the volumes to get it, right? So I think that's where fintechs again, right? Like if you have a remittance license in Singapore, I can end with that. That is, there are some players who would do it, and it's even us, right? That is like what we do is, there are much better solutions out there. There is like blockchain. There are so many other guys who actually can send this money or convert the money for you at a much better rate. So I think the only problem is, like none of these guys have a very ready-made solution for the corporates. If there is one, I would suggest please use it. It can be Volopay, it can be somebody else, but I think there could be some potential solutions, but it's hard. I cannot say one in top of my mind, but for small currencies, I would say there is TransferWise, there is Instagram, there is a couple of others like that. So who pretty much do a decent job. But yeah, so I think it's not very tedious. Thanks to things like Corpas and everything. Singapore government has made it like extremely easy, right? It's just like one click and you get onboarded. But we might need some documentation, especially for the credit line and everything, because you're doing remittance at the end of the day. It comes with a lot of legal stuff and everything there, right? AML and all that stuff, money laundering and all that laws apply there. So it's not at all tedious. It's just like yeah, I mean, and just one click of Copas and all that, some 2-3 documents and you are in. So it's super fast, super fast. Yeah.
Are there any like use cases perhaps that you have done for companies that actually benefited?
By use cases, I mean, so sorry.
Yeah.
Can you just touch upon like what do you mean by use cases in the sense like any
Yeah.
particular? Okay. So one, I mean, if I can answer that, right, it's like we try to get into a company and try to get all their accounts payable through our platform. If you really ask me, we want to solve all your payables problems, right? But it's interesting that every company comes with its own unique quirks, right? Some companies have a lot of subscriptions, right? If you really look at it, some companies have a lot of subscriptions. So what we do is we bring them on board, they load their money with us, then they issue a lot of virtual cards for all the different subscriptions for the corresponding employee, right? And the employees at the end of the month, they upload the invoice into it, and your entire accounting and everything is done without sharing your debit card, right? And especially since it's COVID now, there's a very high demand for this, right? That is like you have your employee sitting somewhere else. Before it was like the finance guy secretly going there and entering the key just next to him, right? That's what used to happen in the office every other day, right? But now finance guys cannot go walk up to the people and enter these details. So now virtual card is the right solution. So I think that's something that has really worked very well for us. And yeah, and also this high demand that we have for the bill payment feature, especially cross-border, since it's so expensive with the banks. So these two things I think are like very high, I see very high usage in our platform right now. We are a little slow, I think, in our region. We are a little slow in terms of when you compare it to the rest of the world. But I feel virtual cards are like a very good way to make a lot of these payments. Like, simple example, I can give you with one use case, right? You can go and tell your team that you should buy a ticket only for $500, right? Like you can have this restrictions for travel ticket and everything, right? Or you go and purchase something from Taobao or whatever, that's Shopee, you want to purchase something, right? The good thing about virtual cards is instead of telling them or instead of just trying to enforce this verbally and then have an argument with them after they make the payment, the good thing is you instantly issue a virtual card. Like just tell their name, tell the details, and just issue it. He instantly gets it on his mobile app. He goes and makes a payment for it. So that is the smartest way. That is the smart thing that a virtual card gives you, right? So instantly load some X amount, give it to him. He just takes it, makes a payment for it. And also virtual cards gives you that other thing that I told you, right? It's basically free. It's free, right? It's completely free. So it's basically, you're taking your pool of money and you're deciding how you want to make the payments for it, right? So I really think it solves a lot of problems for a lot of companies, especially with subscriptions, one-time payments, and all these unique other things that is there. I really think I am betting big on virtual cards, especially considering, I'm seeing the way the people are adopting it. As I told you, 95% of my payments are on virtual cards. It's not a joke, considering there was zero education of this stuff earlier, right? I really think there is a need for education on virtual cards that is missing in the region for sure. But Singapore, I mean, like always, does catch up on all these trends very quickly. I really think we will catch up on that trend. And I think, we can be at the forefront of that trend for sure. I think the resistance does not come from an industry specific. It all boils down to the momentum or whatever it is, the inertia of the finance staff there. Trust me, it's not. It depends, right? Some finance guys, I've seen some insanely good people, who just love the concept of virtual card. Now they are like much bigger experts than us actually in usaging the budgeting and the virtual cards and everything, right? Then there are a lot of other guys I see, they just use this for the savings purpose. They don't really make good use of the budgeting and the virtual cards and everything. They just use this because we are way cheaper. That's fine, that works for me. But if you really ask me, you know it's all depends on who you've hired as your finance guy. If he's it's totally a function of what is his adoption this thing, or I think it's just a function of it. But in general, what I've seen is tech companies are very fast at adopting these things, definitely very fast. And I've even seen very weirdly F&B is like, they are very good at adopting it, because it solves some very interesting use cases when it comes to managing every branch of every franchisee and everything. There's a very good use case there. And also I've seen this very nicely getting adopted by logistics companies and everything, where they have a lot of staff going every day out there and making a lot of payments on behalf of the company, right? So whenever there's a lot of BD guys or logistics staff, it's a no-brainer solution to have. Like, you should give them a card. They can't come and file expense claims to you and waste one day of their week, right? Such a waste of this thing, right? So I think there are some industries where the solution is really, really well suited. But in general, the payments is a problem for every single this thing.